So this is something I love to talk about. I liked earth science, and it fascinates me. And I did this. Kevin said a few years back. I said I'm really going to spend a lot of time understanding current versus tide. So this is my really sad attempt at doing a pretty neat chart, but I think hopefully it'll tell you a good story. When I think of tide and currents, I think of a couple things that affect it. The most important thing that affects it is the moon. This is a gravitational change in the Earth's atmosphere. When the moon is pulling on the waterways and then pushing back, is essentially what's draining our harbors and filling them back up with the ocean tides. Basically, when you look at, and along with winds, by the way, let's not take wind out of the equation, because when you look at the wind factor, on Long Island specifically, because this is where I fish, an east wind floods our bays. So if you've got a moon and an east wind, count on extremely high water, extremely fast-moving currents in your inlets. If you have a west wind and it's midway through the moon cycle, you're going to see much skinnier, or I should say just much calmer water, a much more transitional, standard tidal prediction. What's really important here is there's two big differences between tide. Everybody says, oh, it was an outgoing tide, or it was an incoming tide. Well, the truth is I think there's no such thing as an incoming or outgoing tide. It's an ebbing current or a flooding current. It's a rising tide or a dropping tide. And there's two big differences there. People say, which tide do you like to fish at? I say, well, I don't really fish tides. I fish current patterns and inlets. Right? So when I think I'm fishing an inlet, I'm always thinking currents. I'm not thinking the tides so much. I may like one side of the tide better, but I'm thinking about the current on that side of the tide. So there's a couple of great resources that you can go find your tides and currents. What I find is that currents are not covered everywhere. There are some popular inlets, or I should say, I guess Coast Guard, what they consider navigable inlets, where they'll publish currents. If you look in your Noreast magazine that you received, and you'll flip over to the report section, and I'll see Shinnecock. Shinnecock will have high tide, low tide, slack water. So Noreast magazine will show you the current in certain inlets. So it's really not that much math. You can really say, okay, I know when it's slack tide or the tide is turning, and whether you decide to fish there or not becomes the experiment, right? What I experience on those tidal swings that will decide how I fish. So there are some magazines that are going to show you the current. Noreast.com, Newsday, many other guides, including Eldridge. Anybody who hasn't, this is an old book, but this is just the Eldridge guide. I get the new one every year. This will really give you details on currents and tides in any waterway.
Get it.
Yeah, this is if you want to learn about currents and tides, I can't teach you anything as much as this book can teach you, but it really gives you not just the currents and tides predictions, right? Because remember, everything I say here is a prediction. I am the great Karnak. It will be slack tide at 3:30 today. This book will also give you the speeds of the currents in these areas, so you can, if you're a boat fisherman and you're going to go fish.
What book's that?
Oh, this is the Eldridge Tide and Pilot book.
And where can you get it?
You can get it in any bait and tackle shop, online, just about anywhere.
And that comes out every year?
It comes out every year.